What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com, and today we are looking ahead to Bellator 292, which is a very good card, in all honesty. The start of the Bellator lightweight tournament going down on March 10th over in San Jose in the United States, and I have a lot to say, honestly, on this card and on the Bellator lightweight tournament as well. And John, before maybe we get into the actual card and the nuts and bolts of it, maybe we would be best off to take a look at that Bellator lightweight tournament and just quickly maybe go through it. I haven't gone through it in depth yet, and I know we talked about the last tournament, and we talked about tournaments obviously as we preview and review the cards here as well. So we might as well do it just to get us underway here. So the 8 men in the tournament are as follows: Alexandr, Shabily, AJ McKee, Benson, Henderson, Usman Nurmagomedov, the champion, Patricky Pitbull, Mansour Benoit, Tofiq Musayev, and now Bryn Primus, who replaces Sydney Outlaw. He'll be fighting here in not too long to kick off the tournament on his side as well. So I think most of the names we expected to be in the tournament are in the tournament, and it makes for a fantastic tournament. We'll just look at the Bellator rankings at the moment and the top 10, and this top 10 has actually moved a bit since the tournament was made, I suppose. So the champion, obviously, Usman Nurmagomedov. We have Patricky, the former champ, Musayev, Henderson, Shabily, Outlaw, who was in the tournament, no longer is. Now Primus, who obviously is number 6 here and is now in the tournament, who wasn't in originally. AJ McKee, Islam Mamedov, who'd find himself a little bit unlucky, as I suppose would Yagshimuradov, and Mansour then is also in the tournament. He's a new entrant at number 10. Before last week, Peter Queally was in these rankings, and he's another guy I think who would probably, I'm not sure actually, I met him last week and I didn't ask him. I suppose I should have, but I'd say he would have enjoyed to be in the tournament, but the whole reason probably why he isn't is because he was fighting last week in Dublin, because he'll probably again in September when they come back. I think they announced the 23rd of September, if I'm not mistaken, coming back. They'll probably want him on that card as well. So they more than likely didn't put him on it for that reason. But you know, when you have Queally in there, like a few others on this, you're guaranteed for fun fights. As I said, Primus was probably a guy who was not happy to miss out on it, but now he's in. Mamedov, probably another guy as well, who was not too happy to be out of it. But all these lads are fighting around now as well, so there's definitely the opportunity to maybe get in if there's an injury or something like that as well. So you never know. It's funny enough, I was actually talking to a fighter just before I did this about a tournament, and they were kind of saying to me, I was supposed to be in this tournament but not. Maybe I'll wait till the semi-final, someone will get injured and I'll get in then and win the big money there. So it might be a blessing in disguise for some of these lads. One thing I was a little bit not shocked, because I it was always going to happen, but I'm a little bit surprised, or maybe surprise isn't the word, but just AJ McKee being in the tournament. I thought with a guy who has just signed on with Bellator and has signed what seems like a good contract, a guy who it feels like he wants to go up and down weights, and maybe no longer. Maybe he's getting a little bit older now. Obviously, he's still very young, but the fact that he is in this tournament and now caught up in this tournament possibly for a year, I think that's a little bit unfortunate, because you look at that Patricio trilogy, and I think a lot of people would have liked to have seen that, whether it was at 155 or 145 or wherever it might be, and now that kind of can't happen in this. Now, if he goes out and wins the tournament and then it's a super fight champion versus champion, we were talking about something else, but that's a way down the line. So I don't know, it's interesting. Like there was Jeremy Kennedy the other day was talking about Patricio going to 135 now. I don't know whether that's talk from a fighter who's looking to fight him or something that's happening, but maybe he's 2 classes away from him by the time it happens. But yeah, that was one thing I thought was a bit interesting, but also you put AJ McKee in there and you have better fights, you have more important fights, you have top quality fights. So I can 100%, do you know what, in a way I admire Bellator actually doing it and kind of risking one of their stars in a tough tournament like this. But very, very good tournament. Look, and we'll get into the first 2 matchups here in a second, but like Bernoulli is such a good fighter. Such a good fighter. It was, when he came into Bellator, I'd known a bit about him, but there's lots of lads you hear the names of and think someone in the UK scene or the UK, the Europe scene or something says, watch out for this guy. This guy is really, really good. And you look a bit about him and you don't think much more of it. But then he came in and I remember I got 3 texts oh, this guy's gonna run through him. And then I was like, yeah, he's good. And I was like, I'll go and I'll watch a bit back from him. And I think one of his fights is coming up and I watched a good few of his fights and I was thinking, God almighty, this guy, oh, he's probably someone that they don't know a whole lot about, but they will very, very quickly. A very, very, very good fighter. You'd almost say the same about Tofiq Musayev, although a few lads have found out about him that are in Bellator already over in Risen and all that. And we know what Patricki's like. We'll get into Usman, Benson, and Shabily here in a minute as well, but and Musayev obviously as well, but very, very interesting tournament, and I can't wait for it to get going, and not just to get going, but we're looking at the quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals. There's almost guaranteed bangers in all of them, not necessarily guaranteed bangers, but guaranteed top quality fights between top quality fighters. There isn't a bad fighter in the bunch here. There really isn't a bad. The only thing I would say is Bryn Primus only kind of fights once a year, so maybe that might be a bit of an issue. But you might last long either. You never know on the short notice. But yeah, I am really looking forward to this tournament. They're calling it one of the best tournaments of all time. I'm no historian or anything like that. And people on Sherdog here will probably say there was Pride tournaments and all better than it, but that doesn't matter. This is a great tournament, a top quality tournament. I almost think it takes away from it a little bit with Bellator saying the best tournament in the history of MMA and all. It's just forget about that. Let's talk about it being a great tournament, that which it absolutely is. So let's get into it. Let's get into Bellator 291. We have 2 tournament fights to kick it off. Usman Nurmagomedov versus Benson Henderson and Tofiq Musayev versus Alexandr Shabily. Let's talk about the main event altogether first of all. I usually go from the bottom to the top, but I go from the top a little bit down here. I probably won't go down to fully to the bottom of this card. But interesting fight between Benson Henderson and Usman Nurmagomedov. I interviewed Benson last year. I was at his last fight against Peter Queally, and I just wonder how his mindset is actually affecting him these days, whether it's a benefit or not. Because when I spoke to him, he seemed kind of like a guy who was not necessarily going through the motions, but he's like, I haven't much left in my career. His wife is starting. Is she on? She's on this card, isn't she? Yeah. Oh no, she's not on this card. Sorry, it's Keri Melendez is on this card. My apologies, but she is going to be fighting in Bellator now, going to be having fights as well. And he kind of said, I have a few fights left, then it's her turn, I'm going to be looking after the kids, I'm going to be looking after the house and all, everything like that, and that it's her turn to shine then, which I don't know if that adds a bit of pressure to you or adds kind of okay, well, no matter what, I've only a couple of fights left, I might as well go out and throw everything at it, and that's that, which is I think most people wouldn't be like that, but with Benson Henderson, he's a different type of cat, and I think that might be a thing for him. And watching him fight against Peter Queally, okay, I think it was a very favourable matchup for Benson in terms of, I think Peter, coming into it the shoulder was a big issue for him, so that definitely helped. But all in all, and I don't think he'd use that as an excuse, and I'm certainly not here, but all in all, Benson Henderson is just a slightly better version, or a marginally better version than Peter Queally in every area. I think he's a bit of a better wrestler, bit of a better striker, bit of a better technician, and all round. And in a fight like that, Benson Henderson, he thrives so well. He is one of these guys. I think he's probably an underrated fighter in the history of the sport. If you look at when he was the UFC lightweight champion and look at how long he's been around and some of the names he's actually beaten, because he's maybe not spectacular and doesn't have maybe the big finishes or the big knockouts or the big talk or anything like that, we don't actually rate him as highly as we should. And I think we should. We're in an era now where well-roundedness is key, where being the most well-rounded fighter is being the best fighter in the world. And Benson Henderson really was that for a long time. Now that, Perez submitted him and things like that happened. But I think after that, he improved his jiu-jitsu. He became a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. He moved on his game. became better on the ground. He always had good wrestling, but add the jiu-jitsu to it, to kind of the very technical, tactical striking he had. You know, I think he's a guy, when you talk about overachievers and underachievers in MMA, I think he's a guy who's massively overachieved for what he's had, and I think a lot of that is down to intelligence, stick-to-itiveness, and just his ability to win. You know, he really is a winner. If there's one word to describe Benson Henderson, it is a winner. Like, he's very hard to be. It's very hard to remember a time when Benson Henderson was in trouble or knocked out or anything like that. And that's a credit to him, but also a very, very tough guy to come up against, no matter who you are. Now, for Usman or Nurmagomedov, it's interesting because he's coming up against that in a test like, you know, I hasten to say he's never seen before, but looking through his record, it doesn't seem like he has. You know, I spoke recently about, you know, some of the guys coming through the Polish scene, say like a Gamrot or a Soldic, or even, you know, some fighters that have had fights even in Poland, the likes of Dricus Duplessis. Like, even if they're not the best fighters in the world, they have to come through like a really, really tough set of fights to get there. And there's some in Russia and stuff as well. But I feel like in Russia sometimes it's more about like Khabib, you know, Conor used to always say like, oh, you 20 fights and, you know, the 3 wins between whatever it was like that. And I think Usman is like a combination of both of those, if I'm being honest, but has never like... There's a couple of names on it where you can say, okay, this guy is really, really good. You might know him, but like there isn't that standout name like a Barnoui, say, if he had fought him, or if he'd fought, say, someone like a Soldic had fought, or like a Gamrot had fought someone early in his career that's now in the UFC or now in one championship or something like that. I'm looking through the names here, and there really isn't anyone like that on the early career of Usman or Nurmagomedov. Now, that doesn't mean he's not a great fighter or anything like that, but it also means he isn't like as tested against every skill set as fighters like Gamrot, who fought Norman Park 3 times in KSW are. In terms of like, he's a tough guy, a tough out, never been knocked out. Good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling, good striking, a great test for someone who is, you know, 10, 15, 20 fights into their career trying to climb all the way to the top. You know, the guys he's fought in Bellator are good guys. Mike Hamill, a good, you know, Patricky, but none of them quite like Benson Henderson in the way he fights, in the well-roundedness of it, in the way he won't make it easy for you at all. And I know, okay, people might say, okay, Patricky beat him. Fair enough. I get what you mean. But for Usman to go in there and look good against Benson is something that is going to be very, very, very tough to do. You look at Benson's losses, right? Apart from the Chandler knockout in 2020, it's just been like decision loss, split decision loss, decision loss, got knocked out by Dos Anjos, you know, when kind of everyone was, and then you the Pettis armbar, and then there was a long time before that when you the Pettis decision loss again, and that's them all there, you know. So not an easy guy to get out of there at all. You know, really, really not an easy guy to get out of there at all. Or, as I said, not even to get out of there, because I don't expect out of this fight, but to look good against. Like, Usman is a guy who, you watch that Patricky fight, and you get about 2 minutes into it and you realize this is over, you know? He's just going to jab him up. He's just going to beat him up for the whole fight. Will that be the case with Benson? Well, like, if it is, I think and I really rate Usman or Nurmagomedov. I think he's brilliant. But if he can do that to Benson Henderson, I think that's on another level. Now, even Benson, at this stage of his career, you know, where he's only a fight or two left at 39 years of age, still, I think it's a massive achievement if he can do that. Like, if I'm to look ahead to this fight, I do think it's going to be, my prediction would be 50-45 Usman or Nurmagomedov, but I don't think it'll be like a dominant 50-45 where there's like a couple of borderline 10-8s or something like that, or 3 borderline 10-8s. Maybe there could be one, or there could be a big knockdown or something like that. So I wouldn't rule out, but like, I don't think it's going to be a one where Benson Henderson's face is busted up and he's destroyed. Like, I think he'll still be there in the 4th round thinking, okay, I'm 4 rounds down, what can I do in the 5th, and then losing the 5th as well, kind of thing. That's the fight I envisage here. But I'll say it again. If that doesn't turn out to be the fight that happens, if it's a fight where Usman or Nurmagomedov is winning it, 50-42 or 50-43 or something like that, or he gets the finish, I think we have to recalibrate where Usman is right now. Like, I feel a lot of people think Usman is one of the best lightweights in the world, but 16 fights in, having, really only been tested maybe once or twice in terms of talent you would expect. So we don't rate him up there yet. Not that he can't get there over 2 or 3 fights, but if he beats Benson Henderson in a big fashion like that, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. Like, I think there's an interest in how the leg kick battle will go here. Yeah, if they both try to do it. I'm interested to see how the wrestling battle goes, because Usman, he's willing and well able to jab you up for the whole fight. Benson's well able to strike for the whole fight. Both have been known to try in a takedown. I think Usman more so than Benson, especially recently. Although, I think Usman out of... he didn't have to do it out of necessity. I think even when Benson might need one, he doesn't throw it in enough for my liking. So I'd be interested to see how that changes here and how the tactics look in this one from both guys. And I'm also, tactically as well for Usman, how does he adjust to someone like a Benson Henderson to maybe change it from that 50-45 fight to have maybe more of an advantage in the fight, but also thinking this is a tournament. I'll have another fight in a couple of months down the line against another tough guy. Do I really want to put myself in a position where something bad can happen and it takes me out of it? So a lot of variables here. I just find it very hard. The reason I find it very hard for Benson is I spoke about Benson being a little bit better everywhere than Queally. I think Usman is a little bit better everywhere than Benson. I think his striking is a little bit better technically, and we'll see, because we've never really seen him have to win a tactical fight. Last time out, maybe against Patricky. Okay, you can say that. I think his wrestling is slightly better. Jiu-jitsu, interesting. I don't know. We'll see. Some people, the jiu-jitsu, you never know how good it is until we find out. Someone like a Justin Gaethje, we never realised his jiu-jitsu was not great until Habib took him down and played with him fucking... I don't know, me against Buchecha or something like that. It was ridiculous. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. But, I expect Usman to win this, and the official pick is Usman or Nurmagomedov by decision, I think. Let's move on. Let's talk about some of the other fights on this card. The second and final lightweight tournament fight on this card is Tofiq Musayev against Alexandr Shabily. Watching both of these lads last night, they're similar but different. They both like to strike and throw in a takedown. They both like to hit hard. They both like to get their opponents out of there. I think Shabily is way more of 1-2 down the middle, 1-2 down the middle, hold you at the end of his jab, control the fight, control the cage, control the fight, control the cage type of guy. Then if it opens up, he'll go down, jump in, take you down and beat you there. Whereas Musayev, and it's funny because you see him fighting in a cage an awful lot, obviously, have over and risen, and I don't know how much that changes things, but he's a lot more, I suppose, varied on the feet in terms of where he stands and what he throws. He switches stances an awful lot. Doesn't throw as many straight shots, although he can throw a nice straight shot. Jabs off both hands, backhands off both hands as well, obviously depending on what stance he takes. Kicks to the legs, kicks to the body and all of that. A way more varied fighter. But if you're talking about tactically and technically straight down the middle fighter, Shabily is a level above most guys in the world, and probably slightly with Musayev as well. So take your pick. Which one do you think will win this battle, will win the fight? And it really is as simple as that. I think for a fight like this, you kind of have to look where the wins have come from. Musayev, 18 of his 20 wins inside the distance, and the wins over the likes of Sidney Outlaw, Patricky. Then after that, he's beaten some good guys like Johnny Chase, Damian Brown, Darren Cruikshank, and others. But that level hasn't been proven at the very, very top yet, multiple times. You could say the same about Shabily, though, to be honest, and that's why I think this makes this fight even tougher. And Tofiq is better than Shabily's in terms of the level he's beaten. Now, Shabily went in and he finished Prix in his last fight. He's a good win over Adriano Martins. He's beaten Alfie Davis, who I rate very, very highly as well. And he's been fighting, for a good while. And, made his debut back in 2010, been around for a long, long time. And I watched one of his fights from... when was it? Around 2019-ish, if I'm not mistaken. And he's a guy who missed a lot of the time because of the pandemic. He fought in December 2019, didn't fight again until May 2021 against Alfie Davis. That's a long time to be out. And I'm interested to see, he looked way more of that straight up fighter before that, the 1-2s down the middle, and it was with ease almost, whereas now it feels like there's a little bit more pop in those. There's a little bit more coming behind him in terms of, I said variation with Musayev, but I feel like there is a little bit more variation out of Shabily these times as well, even I should say, with his takedowns and with his ability to finish on the ground. Now, you look at his record, 22 wins, 18 of them inside the distance, but the difference is here he has 7 submissions, and obviously Musayev has an awful lot less. It is one of those fights, I think, where I think if Shabily can get the fight to the ground and can keep it there, that's where he'll win it. I think on the feet, he could go to either guy, really. I would slightly favour Shabily as well. I have a little bit of a bias towards very good jabs and very good straight-up fighters. So my pick in this fight is going to be Shabily, but I think really either guy could win. I'd be interested to see the betting odds. I can definitely change my pick if the betting odds come out and Musayev is a very big underdog or something like that. 50-50 fight for me. Well, 55-45 maybe. So, yeah. So, I'm going for Shabily and I'm going for Usman or Nurmagomedov. The other big fight for me on this card is MVP Michael Venom Page against Goiti Yamauchi. And it's funny, I was talking to MVP the other day. We did a scrum with him, but I was talking to him afterwards as well, just about his teammates who were fighting last week in Norbert Navinyi, most of all. And I was just chatting away with him. And I walked in, I was like, sent to the lads, in press row. I was talking to MVP there, and he's in good spirits and on. And they were like, oh yeah, that fight next week is going to be fun. And I was like, that fight is next week? Because it feels like this Yamauchi fight was literally just announced. And he was there and we were asking him questions about it. And it felt like the questions we were asking him was as if this was happening in May or something. But he was there in Dublin, just walking around, having the crack last week. I was talking to a few fighters with fights coming up, a few of the Irish guys and ladies. And they were saying, oh no, I have a fight in 3 weeks, so I can't be going to that card. He's a fight over in San Jose and he was going, next week. And he was going to Dublin, going back, training, and then going out to San Jose. A very good teammate. That was what would you call it, but maybe a night off is a door stick in the world, but I was a little bit surprised with that. But anyway, him versus Goiti Yamauchi is a very interesting fight to me. It's the level of fight that people maybe won't realize is what MVP needs. A lot of people might know Yamauchi as well as someone who's been watching a lot of Bellator over the last while. He's a very good fighter, a very, very good fighter, and a finisher as well. We talk about finishes, 28 wins inside the distance. 24 wins out of 28 wins have come inside the distance, 21 of them by submission. He's an absolute master at finishing the fight on the ground. I was watching that, what's the Levin Koscielny fight at the weekend, and he just eats him up. He just absolutely eats him up, gets that armbar, finishes him. It's just so easy at times for him. I think though, and they said it in the commentary, I think of that fight and maybe even the Gracie fight as well, he's improved an awful lot on the feet. Now, against MVP, is that something he's going to want to show? Maybe not. Let's be honest there. But MVP is a very tough guy to kind of break down tactically in terms of closing the distance and getting the fight to the ground. We saw Logan Storley was able to do it, but Logan Storley is a very, very, very good wrestler, and in my opinion lost that fight because MVP lost the better strikes. MVP is a very, very good defensive grappler, I suppose you would say. He's gotten taken down multiple times, but he very rarely gets submitted or hurt or anything on the ground like that. Now, the one guy to knock him out was Lima, who caught him with like an uppercut on the ground. So that's not exactly, you know, ground and pound or submission or anything like that. And then the other one then was, you know, in my opinion, a questionable decision against Logan Storley. He's never really been beaten on the ground. Well, he's never been finished on the ground anyway. Well, he has. Just ignore what I'm saying. But you get what I mean. Like, he's not a guy like you'll expect. Okay, he's this point fighting kickboxer. How are you going to beat him? Take him down and beat him there. You know, okay, it did happen for Storley, but not really. And the Lima one was a punch. It wasn't really, you know, grappling or anything like that. So that's what I'm going from. Can Yamauchi be the first guy to do that? Can he be the first guy to submit him, to dominate him on the ground, to have no question afterwards? It'll be very interesting if he does. He's probably getting a title shot. You know, I think Jason Jackson is going to be the next one to fight Yaroslav Amosov. Can Yamauchi put himself in line? Because if he wins this against MVP, I think he's right there. You know, and if MVP is probably in the same position, no, definitely don't forget Jason Jackson. He is the next guy in line. But the next guy to the next guy is going to be a big one, and I think this could be now. I would say Amosov, and now I don't know about this, but like was out obviously over in Ukraine, and I would say he'd probably want to get another fight as quickly as he could. If he can get that and the winner is like the way Amosov also was in Dublin, the reception he got and all, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they brought Amosov back. If MVP won this, Amosov versus MVP in Dublin in September would be a very big fight. MVP would bring a large travelling band over from the UK with him, and there'd be a lot of Ukrainian fans. Sign me up for that one there straight away. So very interesting fight here. Look, we know what MVP will try to do. He'll try to get off his striking on the outside, try to land the big shots, try to stay safe, not get taken down, dance around him for 3 rounds and try to win it. Yamauchi will try to land a few big shots inside, not get hit with too much, get the takedown and try to submit him. Pretty simple. So yeah, that's okay. The other, I suppose, big fight on the card. I asked Scott Coker about the heavyweight title picture, and the name he brought up was Valentin Moldavsky, who's taken on Linton Vassell in a rematch of a fight they had a few years ago. Watched that fight yesterday, and it was a lot closer of a fight than, say, you look at the Sherdog record here and you think, oh, okay, Moldavsky beat Vassell, unanimous decision, probably, you know, whatever, boxed him up or took him down. Now, he did take him down and he did win lots of it on the ground, but Vassell was doing well on the ground for long periods, and, you know, I think Big John had it 19-19 going into the third, and whichever round he had it, I had it the other way around. So those first 2 rounds were could have been swapped. They were very close, I thought, the first 2 rounds, and then okay, the third round, Moldavsky was able to land a little bit more, but Linton Vassell is a big, strong heavyweight. It is coming up on 4 years ago, or almost exactly 4 years ago since that fight. I just wonder if Vassell, like you look at Moldavsky, and let me just look, 31 years of age, very, very young for a heavyweight, and Vassell, you know, shoving on a little bit of 39 years of age, now 40 this year. I just wonder if that plays into this one a little bit. We will see. Moldavsky came out in that fight and he was, I wouldn't say reckless on the feet, but he threw a lot of shots, and then it turned into a a grappling match. I wonder if he's a little less reckless this time, turns it into more of like a striking matchup and can win that. Now, Vassell is very long in terms of his jab and all that as well, so maybe that's not the best idea in the world, but I just think Moldavsky will have a few tricks up his sleeve here and will win this one maybe a little bit more decisively. Pick an MVP as well to win that fight if you're looking for my picks here. We will run through the rest of this card pretty quickly. An absolute banger between Erik Perez and Barzola is surely on the cards. I think Barzola will get him out of there. I just think he is very similar fighters, but I think Barzola is just better. I really highly rate Barzola. I think he's very good. Big test for Keri Melendez. She's 5-0 against Bruna, who's been around for a bit with double the amount of fights in her case. She's 6-4, but that's a good test for her. Interesting fight between Josh Hill and Cass Bell as well. I know my countryman Brian Moore will be probably watching that one as well. You know, we all think the Higo fight is the fight to make, but will it be made? Moore's called out Cass Bell multiple times. I know that Josh Hill fight is another one that could be made as well, but that's a good fight between 2 good wrestlers who can strike as well. I mentioned Islam Mamedov earlier on. He's fighting Shamil and Nikaev talking to a couple of the people from Bellator the other day, and they were telling me to watch out for this guy. He's 10-0 here coming in, and he's I think this is his second Bellator fight, isn't it? Yeah, he fought Christoph Gagos and some good guys outside of the UFC as well, and this is a guy by all accounts to be looking out for. So it'll be interesting to see. Now 10 wins, 9 decisions, which is a bit of an odd one, I suppose, but we'll see how we get. This is a tough fight to start off your career in Bellator, or your second fight in Bellator, even against Islam Mamedov. So we'll see how well that goes. A big fight as well. I'd pick Mamedov in that. Do you know what? I'll go with Caspel as well to beat Josh Hill, even though I'm not 100% sure on that one, to be honest. And I'll go with Keri Melendez as well. The fight I'm looking forward to here in the light heavyweight division, Julius Anglickas against Dovletdzhan Yagshimuradov. A very interesting fight, because this lightweight division, it needs someone, or light heavyweight division even, it needs someone to emerge. Like Carl Moore beat the number 7 Carl Albrechtsen a couple of fights ago. He won his last fight there at the weekend. He should be up in there towards the top 5 now as well. Where both of these guys around that top 5, top 10 position. I think the winner of this may be against Carl Moore, possible number 1 contendership fight. So this is a big fight for both guys to win. There might be, Yoel Romero, whoever coming back at some stage in that division as well, and we will see. But to I think it's a very interesting light heavyweight division there at the moment. Nimkov obviously at the top of it, and they had the tournament, and will Anderson and Davis get a title shot next? I think maybe moving away from that for the moment. Yoel, yeah, maybe if they can do it. And then we've Grant Neal and Polizzi as well with Anglickas and around there as well. So if Yagshimuradov can get the win, he might take Anglickas' place. But the likes of Karen Moore moving up, the likes of Sullivan Cawley, Alex Polizzi is still there as well. One of those lads I think is going to have to emerge maybe behind Joel and take that spot. So if it is Anglickas who wins, keeps his number 5 spot, Grant Neal is there as well. But I think Anglickas versus Moore makes an awful lot of sense. Probably be 5 versus 6 maybe by the time the rankings come out next week. I think that makes an awful lot of sense there for that one. Again, Bellator have some of the up-and-comers on this card as well. Bobby Soriano, 3-0. Laird Anderson, 3-0 as well. And all the locals as well on the undercard below that. So should be a fun night of fights. I'm looking forward to it. And to start off the Bellator lightweight tournament, the greatest tournament in the history of sports. But should be fun anyway. Right. Comment section below. Let me know who wins the tournament. Here's my pick. Ban Louis. That's my pick. That's my pick for the tournament. Let me know your pick for the tournament in the comment section below, and I will leave it there. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.